Well, the NPA, the National Prosecuting Authority, and the Hawks have established a task force to look into the state capture inquiry report, the findings essentially. Acting Chief Justice Raymond Zondo submitted the first part of three parts actually, to the President 2 weeks ago. Now, he recommended that law enforcement agencies take action against those responsible for state capture. There's the handover of part one of the report. Those implicated include former SAA chairperson Dudu Myeni and former SARS Commissioner Tom Moyane. Well, let's get some reaction about this new planned task force. There's Chief Legal Officer at OUTA, Stefanie Fick. Stefanie, morning to you. All the best for the year ahead. So is this task force going to have any teeth? Do you think it's going to make a difference in the world at all?
Proof is always in the pudding. Let's see. I think everybody would agree that the NPA needs some type of action plan because we've waited long enough. It is not just waiting after the first part of this report came out. It is, if you read the first part of the report, we're talking about, this is 10 years in the making. So the NPA has got some, road to cover. In principle, anything that will assist in order to hold the people responsible accountable obviously needs to, one has to applaud. My only question, and this is what we are wondering about, wasn't that what the ID was for? So it is one thing to have a task team, but will it be resourced? Will there be enough money and will there be enough people in order to make this task team a success? Sometimes I think that we're trying to reinvent the wheel. Just make sure that the organization that you have is working properly. They have been asking for a very long time that they are under-resourced. Shouldn't we look at that? What is a very good idea is to look at a dedicated court that can deal with these cases, because one has to remember that each and every day there is still crime out there. It's not as if criminals, maybe we should speak to them, but criminals all of a sudden do not do anything. So daily there are still, criminals that commit crimes, and that needs to be prosecuted. So a good idea, but will it accomplish what it is supposed to accomplish? Let's see.
When it comes to the setting up of a dedicated court, that's another a new discussion we can have as well. How easy is something like that to do? I'm speaking to a legal expert on this. How difficult is that to set up, and in which legal framework does that sit? Does it sit at the very highest courts of the country? Does it stand alone? Who oversees that? Bearing in mind, of course, as well, that the acting Chief Justice, Raymond Zondo, could very well, down the road, become the Chief Justice as well. There could be a bit of a backwards and forwards. It's a great idea, but I can't help but think there could be issues further down the road if we went that route.
Because again, thank goodness that courts is according to jurisdictions. So whether Joburg has got 4 courts or 5 courts or 6 courts, they have a certain jurisdiction. Your problem is people. Your problem is you will need a magistrate. And I do believe a lot of these cases, although it may fall under the jurisdiction of the High Court, I think a lot of it will most probably fall in the Match Court, Regional Court, where more serious cases are being prosecuted. But again, you need a magistrate or a judge to sit in a court. You need a person that can deal with the machine. If an interpreter is needed, you need an interpreter. And all of that costs money. So again, I want to raise the question that the idea is brilliant. Yeah. The idea of the ID, the investigation directorate, was a brilliant idea. Look where we are. They haven't been quite as successful as I think they set out to be. We haven't really seen any state capture, successful.
Stefanie, let me come in quickly. I'm sorry. Let me just come in very quickly and ask you this before I need to say goodbye to you this morning as well. Let's talk about timelines as well. I just want to get your thoughts on this before I say goodbye to you. I don't imagine in a world we're not going to have all kinds of counter-legal action against the findings in the report by certain individuals. Long before these investigations can start happening with this new task force, we're going to have to go through those legal wranglings, aren't we? And I imagine there's going to be a lot of them. What's your timeline, if you had to imagine one, for this task force to actually start doing its work?
Well, thank goodness. Whether someone I don't know, find the legal basis to take the report on appeal or review or whatever, doesn't matter. The NPA has got a constitutional duty to prosecute. They can take whatever facts they have, because it's two different processes. What happened in the commission needs to be repeated in a court of law. In fact, the state needs to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that someone is guilty. So because of the different natures of these two processes, the NPA can take whatever evidence is currently available, investigate it further, and start prosecuting. There is nothing that is supposed to stop them, except all these resource problems.
Well, I appreciate your time. Always a pleasure. Stefanie Fick, Chief Legal Officer at OUTA, joining us here on the South African Morning.